Welcome back to Footy Classified. Our first guest in the Nissan Navara hot seat had a celebrated career with the Richmond Footy Club, has left the AFL Players Association in very good shape and now takes on the task of running the most underperformed football club in the AFL over the last 30 years. Welcome, Benny Gale.
Thanks, Gary. Great to be here. Great car, the Nissan Navara too, by the way.
we love hearing that.
Yeah.
What we want to know is how you found the first 6 months in what is the genuine hot seat in the AFL.
It's been terrific. It's fantastic to be back at the club I play for. It's a real privilege to be given the opportunity. An enormous amount of work to do, and really excited with the people we've got there to work with, and we're really excited about the future.
Ben, you've been away, you've come back. What's the biggest surprise you've come across so far?
To be honest, Grant, it's probably at this stage my probably lack of involvement in the footy side of things. I think we've got some tremendous people there running the show, and Craig Cameron and the coach and Damien Hardwick. I guess I've perceived our need in other areas, and the commercial sort of areas, and sort of the finances, and all clubs need strong profitability and a strong balance sheet to compete, and I've been working on that pretty diligently.
But looking at it from a player's perspective is one view, but coming back now as a CEO, I mean, are there glaring things that you're seeing that you've thought, gee whiz, this needs urgent attention?
Look, not really. I just think we need to get the basics right, and I think coming on board, the board and the sort of senior manager of the club acknowledge where we are as a club, where we're at. I think we've been open and sort of transparent with that, and as Gary alluded to, we've been an underperforming club, and I think together we acknowledge that. Together we acknowledge we have a lot of work to do.
Honest answer, Brendon. Is running the AFLPA a bludge, relatively?
Is it a bludge? Absolutely not. No.
Relatively to what you're doing
now.
Well,
they're different. They've got different demands, and really you represent probably 700 players, the Players Association isn't the highest priority in players' lives. It's playing, it's getting the game each week, it's preparing, and so it's hard sort of maintaining that sort of sense of motivation. But having said that, the motivation of the players is becoming an increasingly important role, and the players are increasingly engaged. But I think you come to a footy club, and you represent 500,000 fans that are pretty damn passionate about the club, and you've got probably 40,000 members who are incredibly passionate, and so there's a much sort of higher level of accountability, and that's very, very motivating. But managing the expectations of all those, it's a supercharged, motivated environment.
This time last year, you were managing Ben Cousins as head of the AFLPA, and you had a whole lot of media battles going on. You felt he was being intruded upon, etc., etc. You probably maybe think the same this time around, but now you're the CEO. Has Ben Cousins taken up far too much of your time since you came to the Richmond Footy Club?
Not at all, Caro. And I think that's the thing that really surprised me in the events of the last week. I mean, clearly, outside of the club, there's an obsession with Ben. It is an obsession, and we understand that. Ben commands a lot of public interest. But from our point of view, he's taken no more management than any other player. In the last couple of weeks, given he's had a couple of visits to hospital, it's taken a bit of management. But I guess that's why we had difficulty with some of the articles, yours included. That seems to be the impression that we do think long and hard about Ben every day, and that we sit down and we lecture him, and the leadership group issues edicts and directions. It's not the case.
I've never heard anything. I don't think the leadership group has ever said anything to him.
But you talked about Richmond officials, directing, lecturing, talking with Ben about his habits, about his drinking, and I
never use the word lecture or direct.
Well, words
I
to that
said that he was warned on more than one occasion to cut his drinking.
Well, that suggests that Ben's at the forefront of our mind, and we're considering Ben, and Ben's one player at our footy club. He's an important player. He attracts a lot of interest.
Was he warned?
But in my time, Grant, no. Absolutely not. And none of the sort of senior management or senior coaches have not sat down and warned Ben about his habits, his drinking, his extracurricular activities.
They have, Brendon. It has been done.
Now, if you want to talk about former employees in the last 12 months, that's different. That's different. But employees of the Richmond Footy Club now, they have not. They have not, Caro. And, if that's the case, that qualification should have been made. I can't speak for what happened 12 months ago.
I certainly think people who are at the club still
Are you saying
have
the people
spoken
there
to
now?
him.
I
think used to be there and still there.
Yeah.
And anyway, look,
the people
we can agree to disagree, and don't force me to name my sources. You know I never would. But I can assure you, I'm not saying he was called in and counselled, and he was told on more than one occasion, maybe you should watch your drinking, you should think about your footy career.
Can I just make one other point?
And it was certainly never linked to the hospital visits, and you know that.
The rumour and innuendo has reached hysterical proportions, and we know that. I think the club understood that when they took Ben.
As it did in the past, and it was always denied by the player.
But let me give
an
an example of what's happened today. I mean, our media department have been bombarded with calls. Have you heard the latest one going around?
Nope.
Allegedly, Ben's flown the coop. He's jumped the jumbo. He's nicked off overseas. I had a senior. This rumour's been going all day. I had a senior, credible news figure in Melbourne ring me to seek confirmation whether this was the case. And I said, I can tell you it's false. He trained well this morning. He's every chance. I mean, we put up with this day in, day out. And that's
Does that
okay.
concern you?
But many times in the past, Brendon, things that he has been rumoured to have done have ended up being true. In fact, if West Coast had acknowledged those things and even investigated them along the way, they might have been a long way further off than they were. So, I mean, you can understand the hysteria.
No, I can, but all I can say is Ben is one player in our team, and he's an important player, and he's ticked all the boxes with a new coach, certainly since I've been there. His preparation has been outstanding post-Christmas, pre-Christmas. He had some thumb surgery. He had a little personal issue. He took his eye off the ball for a week or two, when I think the magnitude of the whole previous years sort of began to affect him, and that affected his application on the track. The coaches, I guess, saw a lack of effort, a lack of intensity on the track. That was addressed at the time. Since then, he has been outstanding. He hasn't put a foot wrong. And the only setback was, last week I was in hospital.
Do you think he'll play this week?
Look, that'll be a matter for match committee. And if he's fit, he missed 6 days of training. He's an extremely fit athlete. If he ticks the boxes, I'd imagine he'd play.
So to tick that off, and all the hearsay and rumour, and then we'll move on to other topics. You're comfortable with his behaviour over the summer?
From my point of view, I think Ben has been terrific. And I've really enjoyed watching him at practice matches when he's not playing, with the young guys who aren't training, with his instruction, with him talking them through phases of play. I think he's been really impressive, and he's got a huge role to play, and I think he can leave an enormous legacy of Richmond in that department.
Brendon, the Tigers historically have been sort of up and down all over the shop, and in fact Fitzroy has played in more finals than you guys, which isn't a great outcome. But there's a lot of things that you guys need to do. Can you give supporters one non-negotiable that you expect from the club from this year on?
Well, I think overall we need to make good decisions, Grant, and we've made, I guess, some bad ones in the past. We need to make good decisions and get the right people in the right places to work together to make the right decisions more often than the wrong ones. But on field, this year we've often mentioned, it's a year of transformation. It's not just a throwaway line. We're transforming Punt Road, exciting new facility. We've got new coaches, a new game plan. We've got a new way of doing things, which is transformational in nature. But a couple of things in footy. Damien's very big in his defensive capacity. And so we've got some metrics around that. We've got some measurements around the extent of our compliance and non-compliance with his new game plan. We want to play a lot of games the kids under 22 over the next 2 years. So some of those things are really important, and in terms of building a platform. But it starts with building a real defensive mindset. It's where all sort of great teams start, and that's something we want to see a lot of progress on.
Difficult time to rebuild your footy club, given the introduction of the 2 expansion teams over the next couple of years. Have you got the stock in place now that'll see you through the really difficult rebuilding process which the rules and regulations allow for over the next few years?
I'm really, really confident we've got a core group of young guys that are talented enough to be part of 11th Premiership. I'm really confident in the kids we've brought into the system this year. And, the Dustin Martins of these sorts of guys, I think will be very good players for the club. But more importantly, some of the guys at the back end of the draft, I think they've recruited really wisely. But clearly, Gary, we have to go to the draft and we have to exercise our judgment very carefully. We have to make the right decisions. Because
you've got to make the right decisions, mate, because you're talking about 3 flags by 2020.
Absolutely. We've got to make the right decisions in the most competitive sport just about in the world, and one of the most competitive phases in our eras in the history of the game. And I make no apologies for the fact we want to be the best football club. We want to be the greatest.
You cop some flack about the fact that you put an internal document that got out earlier than you would have liked, spoke of a membership target of 75,000, 3 flags in 2020, and over this 5-year plan or 10-year period.
It starts with a vision, and we're not here just to compete. No one is.
Were you
There's no
embarrassed by
point. You
that
may
or
as well pack up and go, no, I'm not embarrassed. I'm actually proud of that. And we've got a vision to compete and to be the best on the field, the best off the field. If we're not locked into that, we might as well pack up and go home.
A lot of Tiger supporters would say they've heard it all before.
But if we can't build the capacity of our club over the next 5 years, some real muscle and horsepower, we're not going to get there. It's going to take a lot longer. So we've got to improve our footy performance. We've got to make 3 final series over the next 5 years. We've got to build our commercial strength, reflected in a whole range of measurements, but notably membership, Gary. And we've got to manage our finances better. We've got to retire debt. And if we can do that, I think we're well on the way to ticking those boxes.
But at the moment, you're a club CEO, and I'm sure you've got a debt that keeps you awake at night, because any club CEO with more than $1 million of debt lies awake at night and worries about it. You've got 3 or 4 first gamers making their debut on Thursday night. That's very exciting. But you also say goodbye to Matthew Richardson. In the short term, how can you sort of entice fans to keep coming to the footy? I'm sure there'll be 20,000 less than last year. And I know that's not just because Richo's retired. But that's going to be a problem for you in the short term, isn't it?
I think it's about being transparent, Caro. And, I think we've been pretty frank over the last couple of weeks and said, as a club, we've stuffed up. And as a club which defines its success in terms of premierships, we've got 10 of them. We're keen on getting a few more. You can only say that we've failed over the last 25 years. So, you've got to be transparent, and then you've got to, come up, demonstrate that we have an inspiring vision of the future, and then we have got a plan.
Is your coach transparent? Because, you've gone from having one of the most outspoken media-friendly coaches to the point of being accused of spin doctor, and a very quiet CEO, to virtually the opposite. I mean, you're here tonight. I don't think Steve Wright would have been. And Damien Hardwick is certainly seen by men. I thought he made a great speech at a very subdued but very honest season launch on Friday. He's seen as media shy and not keen on the media.
Well, I think he's absolutely transparent, and he's extreme man of great integrity and
transparent in not being all that keen on giving interviews.
I think he's said on the record many times that certainly prior to Christmas, his responsibility was about teaching, about developing and teaching a game plan and getting the players to conform to that. And that's where his responsibilities lied. Mate, Damien's a good media performer, and at the right times you'll see more of him.
As we let you go, are you expecting a win against Carlton?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
CEO's talking, or is that footy person from your heart?
Well, both. But absolutely. All players would, wouldn't they? Of course they would.
Absolutely.
I think last year was a debacle. I think the boys would be pretty keen to give a good account of themselves. I think we've got a pretty good midfield when they're all up and running. I think we've got some good goal-kicking options, and should be a great crowd. But importantly, we've got the big fella. Tribute for Matthew Richardson, again, one of our greatest players. And
Dustin Martin debuting, who's one of the most highly rated kids going around.
You know something I don't, Gary?
You told me.
You don't know involved in footy.
I don't know, but he'd be a chance. What a thought, Dustin.
Brendon, thanks for your time. Great to see you back at Richmond. I'm sure Tiger fans feel they're in great hands now, and we look forward to seeing what you do over the next few years. And well done, getting on the front foot tonight.
Thank you.
In this Navara hot seat.
Brendon
Brendon Gale joining us on Footy Classified. It's a poison chalice, but he's got a big job ahead of him. There's no doubt about that. Still to come, Gary tells us why the Saints have gone soft, and can the Bulldogs go all the way? You're watching Footy Classified.